Hello everyone, in this video I will show you a complete guide for the Stonesplit Might path. I will explain the best inner ways, best attributes for tuning, best PvE and PvP skill rotations, and advanced tips and tricks. The Might path is the only tank build in the game so far and it has the best survivability out of all the builds. Despite being a tank build, it can also deal insane amounts of damage, however it is very difficult to play and is very slow, meaning it struggles a lot against moving targets such as players in PvP. This build can deal a crazy amount of chi damage, deleting the enemy's chi bar in a few hits. You can absolutely destroy any solo campaign boss in a few seconds and is very satisfying to play once you get used to the slower pace. The playstyle revolves around buffing your charged attack damage and damage reduction using your Stormbreaker Spear, then shielding yourself with your Thundercry Blade and start landing charged attacks as often as possible. Since you are filling a tank role with this build, your goal is to ensure you don't die and that you tank all the boss damage while also leading the boss away from your team or towards your team depending on the mechanic they are using. The build focuses on critical hits, stacking a lot of max HP and ensuring you always deal a critical hit when you land one of your charged attacks. We'll talk more about stats and gear later in the video. Let's start off with briefly explaining what each martial art does. Your main martial art will be the Thundercry Blade, which uses the Maw Blade weapon class. The Predator's shield skill gives you a 25% HP shield for 8 seconds and 2 bars of Battle Wheel. Battle Wheel is the resource used by Thundercry Blade and Stormbreaker Spear to use certain skills and boost the damage of your charged attacks and combos. If you have the Drumbeat buff, the skill transforms into Heaven's Shift, which gives you a 25% HP shield, and on top of that, you also get the Breakthrough buff. Breakthrough gives you 30% more damage for your charged skills and removes their endurance cost, lasting 12 seconds. The Sunrush Gale skill consumes 2 bar of Battle Wheel to generate a vortex that deals damage and pulls enemies in. After the vortex is done, you spin the blade and deal a powerful attack that gives you focus. Focus makes your next charge skill within 5 seconds charge 50% faster. Moving on to the light and heavy charge attacks and varied combos, which are the bread and butter of this build. Both your light and heavy attacks can be charged up to stage 3 by holding the attack button. You can identify which stage the skill is charged up to by the color of the blade while charging. White means stage 1, yellow is stage 2, and red is stage 3. You want to always aim for a stage 3 charge attack and you can move while charging the attacks in order to ensure you land it. In order to use a stage 3 charge attack, you need to consume 1 bar of Battle Wheel, which will boost your damage by 20% and allow you to perform a follow-up attack, which is called a varied combo skill. In order to trigger the varied combo, you just have to press the attack button again, which will consume 1 bar of Battle Wheel. Another massive advantage of the varied combo is that if you hit an exhausted enemy with it, you get a Mountain Shaker buff which lasts 8 seconds, and during this time you can press the varied combo button again and use up to 2 more attacks for free. This is a massive damage burst against exhausted targets. This applies for both the light and the heavy attacks, which means you can do charged light attack stage 3 into light attack varied combo and charged heavy attack stage 3 into heavy attack varied combo. Of course, the heavy attacks will deal more damage than the light attacks and they also knock the target down, so they are generally better to use. The only time you want to use the light attacks is when you want to deal more AoE damage when fighting multiple enemies. Now let's look at the martial arts talents, which are extremely important. First, we have the charge calculation talent. Your Thundercry Blade charge skills and varied combos will never become abrasion hits and they deal 10% more critical damage. Abrasion hits are the worst type of hits in the game, identified by the grey color of the damage number because they deal the lowest possible damage based on your mean physical attack. This talent also increases your max physical attack when dealing damage with your charge attacks and varied combos by up to 60 at 75,000 max HP. The critical rate up talent increases your critical rate based on the higher value between your body and power attributes, and you get the maximum bonus at 150 body or power. The charge critical hit enhancement talent increases the critical rate of your charge skills and varied combos by 9% at base, up to 15% at 90,000 max HP. Lastly, we have the 2 talents that are the same for all paths, the Stonesplit attribute up and attribute attack damage up. One of them gives you Stonesplit attack and Stonesplit penetration based on your mean Stonesplit attack, and the other makes your Stonesplit attacks scale 50% more with Stonesplit attribute attack. As you can see, the Thundercry Blade is your main damage dealer and also a very strong defensive martial art. The talents give you a ton of critical rate and remove the abrasion hits, making sure that your charge attacks are critting most of the time. Let's move on to the Stormbreaker Spear, which will be your supporting martial art. The Storm Roar skill gives you 2 bars of battle wheel and applies taunt and shock to the enemy for 8 seconds. In addition, you also gain the jump beat buff and 20% damage reduction for 16 seconds, increased to 40% when hitting a multiplayer boss. This skill also breaks the enemy's defense in arena modes. The taunt debuff makes the enemy attack you, but be careful because in group content, if another player is designated as a tank by the party leader, they will take aggro of the boss regardless if you taunt the boss or not, so make sure you are designated as a tank. The shock debuff makes the enemy deal 20% less damage, which is extremely strong in group content because it also helps your party members. The jump beat buff is what allows you to use the perception skill version of the Predator shield. The Thunder Shock skill consumes 2 bars of battle wheel, dashes forward and slams the spear down, knocking the enemy down and applying vulnerability for 16 seconds. Hitting a boss enemy with this skill refunds 2 bars of battle wheel, so it makes it free basically. Vulnerability makes the enemy take 8% more chi and HP damage, increased up to 16% if you're using the Thundercry Blade or Stormbreaker Spear, which you will be using all the time. The Spear also has a charge attack which gives you the jump beat buff, but we will not be using this ever because we already gained jump beat from the Storm Roar skill. Moving on to the martial arts talents, we have Max Battle Wheel Increase, which increases your maximum battle wheel by 1 bar, and another 1 bar when you reach 50,000 max HP. The Max HP Up talent gives you max HP based on the higher value between your body or power attributes, gaining the maximum bonus at 150 body or power. Damage Reduction Enhancement gives you 2% physical damage reduction for every 6000 max HP within 3 seconds after hitting a charged skill or varied combo, up to 30% reduction and 90,000 max HP. Lastly, we have the 2 talents that are the same for all paths, the Stonesplit Attribute Up and Attribute Attack Damage Up. One of them gives you Stonesplit Attack and Stonesplit Damage bonus based on your mean Stonesplit attack, and the other makes your Stonesplit attacks give you 50% more damage. As you can see, the Stormbreaker Spear is great at applying buffs and debuffs, giving you a ton of damage reduction and damage increase for your charge attacks. Now that we finished talking about martial arts, it's time to see what the most optimal combos are for both PvE and PvP. The most optimal skill rotation for PvE goes like this. Start off with your spear by using the Storm Roar skill to get a damage reduction, taunt, shock and jump beat buffs while also gaining 2 battle wheel. Use your Thunder Shock to consume 2 battle wheel and apply vulnerability to the enemy, and if it's a boss you get a full refund of battle wheel. If the enemy is close to you, immediately press the parry button to cancel the animation because you only need 1 hit to apply the debuff. Immediately switch to your Thundercry Blade and use your Predator Shield skill to gain the shield and the breakthrough buff. Start charging your heavy attack up to stage 3 and release it. Press the heavy attack button again to use the varied combo. After landing and dealing the damage, immediately cancel the animation with the parry button. Start charging your heavy attack to stage 3 again and repeat the process until your breakthrough buff runs out. Since it lasts 12 seconds, you should have enough time to use 3 charged skills and 3 varied combos before it runs out. Once you're done with the 3 charged skills and combos, switch back to your spear to reapply the buffs and debuffs, then repeat the rotation. Even though the Sunrush Gale skill reduces the charge time of your charged skills, the cast time is way too long and we don't want to waste time while the breakthrough buff is active. When the enemy is about to become exhausted, don't forget to use a varied combo and spam the button to use it 3 times in a row for massive damage. This rotation should provide you with the maximum DPS and survivability in pretty much all scenarios. Your damage reduction buff will run out while you are casting your 3rd charge attack combo, so if you want more damage reduction instead of DPS, simply stop the rotation at 2 charge attack combos instead of 3. The PvP combo is different from the PvE one because enemies will not just stand in place for you to deal your slow hit combo, so now you want to make use of your Exquisite Scenery Inner Way and your Sunrush Gale skill to land your combos. You want to start off again with your spear by using Storm Roar, but you don't have to hit the enemy, just use it and quickly switch to your Thundercry Blade and use your buffed up shield skill. In PvP you want to make sure you have your shield up as often as possible. Next, you shouldn't use any light or heavy charge attacks because the enemy can just see you cast them and they will run away or interrupt you. You should instead wait for the enemy to come in, and when they are about to hit you, press the block button to block their hit, Then quickly press the heavy attack button to perform the parry counter skill, which lets you use a stage 3 charge attack followed by a varied combo. Whenever the enemy is in close range to you, you should always use your Sunrush Gale skill to deal damage and stagger them. Make sure to switch to your spear whenever your shield is about to run out to reapply the damage reduction buff and enhance your shield, then switch back to the Thundercry Blade and use your shield, then keep looking for opportunities to block the enemy attacks and counter with your parry counter. When the enemy is close to getting exhausted, prepare to use your parry counter again, but this time when you do the varied combo, don't forget to spam it 3 times in a row for massive damage. If the enemy is running away or if you are fighting a ranged build, use Cloud Steps to get closer, followed by Sunrush Gale to pull them in and deal damage. Use other mystic skills such as Soaring Spin and Leaping Toad to deal damage to players who run away. This build can easily destroy any other melee build in PvP if played right. It only struggles against umbrella players that will guide you around the arena. For mystic skills, we have the following recommendations for PvE. Golden Body for even more damage reduction, Ghost Bind for stunning enemies and keeping them in place to land your charge attacks easier, Meridian Touch, Celestial Seas and Cloud Steps to deal with various boss mechanics. For PvP mystic skills, we have the following recommendations. Serene Breeze to get out of stagger, Cloud Steps as a gap closer, Talon Strike to break the enemy's defense, Soaring Spin as a quick damage and gap closer skill, Leaping Toad as another gap closing skill that deals damage over time, Drunken Poet plus Dragon's Breath to quickly apply a damage over time debuff to the enemy. Now let's talk about inner ways which provide you with even more damage reduction and offensive buffs. First we have the Exquisite Scenery inner way, which is the most important one. When you block an enemy attack with the Thundercry Blade, you can activate a special parry counter skill. Pressing the heavy attack button allows you to release a stage 3 charged heavy attack, which can be chained into a heavy varied combo. This effect can only trigger once every 10 seconds. This is a powerful effect because it allows you to use a stage 3 charge attack and varied combo without charging them, and it's especially strong in PvP where you can't really use your combo on moving enemies. In PvE, if you can anticipate when you're about to get hit, you can use this whenever it's off cooldown. Your PvE skill rotation stays the same, except now you should introduce this attack into your rotation whenever you're 100% sure you're about to get hit, especially if you have the breakthrough buff active. At tier 1, you have a 20% chance to restore 1 bar of battle wheel when blocking an attack. At tier 3, hitting a target with a light or heavy varied combo will restore all battle wheel consumed. At tier 4, the cooldown of the effect is reduced to 5 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. At tier 6, when using a stage 3 charged light or heavy attack, or a varied light or heavy combo, you can consume 1 or 2 more bars of battle wheel to increase the damage by 25% or 50%. Overall, this skill changes the way you play in both PvE and PvP, and it makes it easier to spam charge attacks while also buffing their damage. Next we have Trapped Beast. When you take damage while below 30% HP, you gain a shield for 20% max HP. This effect lasts 4 seconds and has a 300 seconds cooldown. At tier 1, the shield is increased to 40% max HP. At tier 3, while the shield is active, you get increased healing and medicine healing. At tier 4, the cooldown of the effect is reduced to 180 seconds. At tier 6, if the shield is destroyed before it expires, the cooldown is reduced to 120 seconds. This inner way is strong, but if you feel like you have enough survivability and you want more DPS, you can replace it with Morale Chant or Adaptive Steel. You should always use this for PvP because it's very useful. Next we have the Art of Resistance, which increases the duration of your own HP shields and their bonus effects by 4 seconds. The bonus effects is referring to the breakthrough buff applied by your shield perception skill, which will increase from 12 seconds to 16 seconds. At tier 1, your HP shields get a 10% increase. At tier 3, when you have an HP shield, you get 2% damage and healing. At tier 4, the duration of your HP shields and their bonus effects is increased by another 2 seconds. At tier 6, if your HP shield is not destroyed before expiring, you restore HP equal to 25% of the remaining capacity, reduced to 5% in arena. This skill is not as great as the other 3, so if you want more DPS you can replace it with Morale Chant or Adaptive Steel. Lastly, we have the Rock Solid Inner Way. It increases the damage reduction of your Storm Roar Spear skill by 20% after taunting a boss unit and by 5% after taunting a non-boss unit, up to 20% in total. Adding this up with the initial 20% or 40% from the skill, you get a damage reduction of 40 or 60%, which is a lot. While the damage reduction is active, you deal 10% less damage, which is a downside. At tier 1, the cooldown of Storm Roar is reduced to 16 seconds. At tier 3, you get 5% more damage against taunted enemies. At tier 4, the damage reduction is further increased to 25% against boss enemies. And at tier 6, when the damage reduction is active, hitting a target recovers health based on the amount of battle wheel consumed, 2% HP per 1 bar of battle wheel. This is a very strong defensive skill, and at tier 6 it becomes a very strong sustained skill as well, making you unkillable even without healers in your team. As you can see, this build is very flexible in terms of inner ways. You can switch them around with Morale Chant or Adaptive Steel if you want more DPS, or you can use the recommended path inner ways for maximum survivability. Now it is time to move to the gear tab and talk about item sets, tuning attributes and more. First off, we want to use the Stonesplit arsenal, and for Divinecraft use poison or fire if you want DPS, or use water if you want to be even tankier than before. When it comes to gear sets, we are using Rain Whisper and Moon Flare. Rain Whisper increases all critical damage and healing by 10% and further up to 15% when you have an HP shield, which is basically all the time. Moon Flare gives you a 30% chance to create a 10% HP shield for 20 seconds when attacking while defending. If you already have a shield, you restore 2% HP in addition. This effect can only trigger once every 60 seconds. What exactly does attacking while defending mean? It is referring to blocking a hit with the Exquisite Scenery Inner Way equipped, which will activate the parry counter effect. This has a 30% chance to activate the Moon Flare effect, which is why you should try to use the parry counter from time to time in PvE as well to gain the shield or the healing. Now let's talk about the actual tuning and attuning attributes we should look for on our gear. When it comes to tuning, all items can roll the same attributes and it's all random. You cannot control what attribute rolls, you can only control its rarity or its value range. How do we know which attributes are important for our build? The answer is pretty simple, we just need to go back and look at our talents and our skills and playstyle and see what stats they are focusing on. In our case, for the Stonesplit Might path, we need the following minimum attributes to reach 100% efficiency on our talents: 90,000 max HP, 150 body or power, and 167 mean Stonesplit attack. If we look at our martial arts, inner ways, item sets and overall build playstyle, we can see that the core idea of the build is to gain shields and spam charge attacks, and we get a lot of effects that increase our critical rate and critical damage. The entire build revolves around dealing slow hits for massive amounts of critical damage, so we want to make sure we are dealing critical hits and nothing else, otherwise we lose a ton of DPS. We get 10% critical damage from our talents, around 20% critical rate from our talents, 15% critical damage from the Rain Whisper set, and even more critical rate and damage from our Exquisite Scenery Inner Way. In order to take advantage of all these effects, we will need to ensure we have 100% precision rate and as much critical rate as possible. Remember that only precision hits can be critical hits, and critical rate is capped at 80%. You get around 20% from your talents, so you want to aim for 60% critical rate from your gear attributes. Even though our main focus is dealing critical hits, we don't want to fall into the trap of having zero affinity rate, because we want to avoid normal hits as much as possible, so it's good to aim for 20% affinity rate as well to complement your 80% critical rate. The priority order for your tuning attributes on all gear pieces should be the following. The first and most important attribute which you want to have on every single gear piece is agility. Why? Because agility is the best way to gain critical rate besides the actual critical rate attribute. Remember that you want to get as close to 80% critical rate as possible. Every 1 point of agility will give you 0.1% critical rate and 1.12 minimum physical attack, so you are getting two of the most important stats just from this one attribute. You want to try and get agility on all of your gear pieces and only stop when you reach 80% critical rate. Next we have critical rate, which is the best way to get our critical rate to 80%. You want to roll this on every single piece of gear unless you already have 80% critical rate. Next you want to roll precision rate until you reach 100%, then stop. Next you want to roll max HP until you reach 90,000 and then stop in order to achieve 100% efficiency for the charge calculation, charge critical enhancement, max battle wheel increase, and damage reduction enhancement talents. Then you want to get body until you reach 150 to reach maximum efficiency for the critical rate up and max HP up talents. Next, you want to get 167 minimum Stonesplit attack in order to reach 100% efficiency for the Stonesplit attribute up talents. After you are done with reaching 100% on all of your talents, for the remainder of your tuning slots, you should focus either on max physical attack or Stonesplit attack for more damage, or defense for more survivability and health. This is how an ideal min-maxed gear set would look like for the Stonesplit Might path. Agility on all 8 gear slots, critical rate on all 8 gear slots, body on 3 or 4 gear slots depending on how much you need to reach 150, precision rate on 4 or 5 gear slots depending on how much you need to reach 100%, max HP on at least 4 gear slots to ensure you reach 90,000, minimum Stonesplit attack on as many gear slots as needed to reach 167, max physical attack, max Stonesplit attack or defense on the remaining slots depending if you prefer more DPS or more survivability. Your goals are to reach the critical rate cap, reach 100% efficiency on all talents, then reach 100% precision rate and then as much physical attack or defense as possible. Remember that you can check the value ranges for each attribute by going to the FX preview screen. Also note that all of these values will keep increasing the higher the level of your gear, so when the next season starts all of these will go up by a large amount, meaning you will be able to reach your attribute caps much easier. You can also check the exact coefficient scaling for all of your skills and attacks by pressing the Upgrade Attributes button. You can see that all of your attacks are scaling with physical attack and then 50% more with Stonesplit attack. For Attunement attributes priority for PvE, focus on the following. For weapons, you want to prioritize Stonesplit penetration, then physical penetration. Anything else is unacceptable. For armor and accessories, you want to roll Thundercry Blade Charge Skill Damage Boost. Anything else is unacceptable. For arena attunement attributes, prioritize the following. On both weapons, get the effect that restores 30 vitality and 20% HP when using an execution skill. On the disc, get the effect which knocks the enemy airborne if you hit them with the Storm Roar while they have less than 30% chi. On the pendant, get the effect which restores 1 bar of battle wheel when hitting non-defending enemies with the Avalanche Charge skill. On the helmet, get the effect which increases your HP and chi damage by 20% for 5 seconds when using a controller removing skill, which is Serene Breeze. On the armor, get reduced damage taken from martial arts skills and special skills. On the bracers, get chi recovery by consecutive deflections. On the greaves, get the effect which restores chi after dodging an enemy attack. Now it's time for some advanced tips and tricks. Always keep an eye on the enemy debuffs and your own buffs. You want to have a clean skill rotation to always maintain all the damage reduction and damage increase buffs on yourself and the damage reduction and damage taken debuffs on the enemy. Remember that your parry counter skill has a 5 seconds window in which you can use the counter attack, so you don't need to rush and use it if there's a chance you will miss it. For PvP especially, once you activate the parry counter window, you can stun lock the enemy and pull them towards you with your Sunrush Gale skill, and then immediately chain into the parry counter plus parry combo for a guaranteed hit. Keep an eye on the enemy's chi bar, and when they are just one hit away from getting exhausted, let them come in and attack you, and block the hit, then immediately use the parry counter to exhaust them. After that, you can spam the varied combo 3 times in a row for massive damage. Remember that the Mountain Shaker buff, which allows you to perform the varied combo 3 times in a row, gets activated whenever you hit an exhausted enemy with a varied combo, and it lasts for 8 seconds. You can perform the 3 varied combos during this entire 8 seconds window, so you don't need to use all of them immediately. You can time them perfectly to ensure you land all of them at the right time. For example, let's suppose you are trying to do a Trial Abyss boss without taking damage, and when the boss is exhausted, you start doing your varied combos, but you can only hit them 2 times and the exhaustion is about to run out. You can simply use 2 combos, perform the exhaustion strike, use your shield, then perform the 3rd varied combo to knock them down again, while also having your shield up without taking damage. While you are holding the Thundercry Blade, your movement speed will be lower, your dodging will be slower. If you need to move quickly, such as dodging an enemy attack like the God of Avarice laser beam, you should switch to your spear. In PvP scenarios where the enemy is running away or trying to kite you, make use of Cloud Steps plus Sunrush Gale to get close and pull them in, dealing some damage. Whenever you see the enemy coming in to deal damage at close range, always be ready to block and use your parry counter immediately after. Remember that you can hold your charge attacks for a long time without releasing them, and you can also move around while charging. You can prepare for when enemies are about to get close to you by charging beforehand, or in PvP you can back enemies into a corner while charging and release the attack when the moment comes. It's a relatively easy build to play once you get used to the skill rotation. Hopefully this video has helped you understand how the Stonesplit Might path works and how to maximize your DPS and survivability. For my next video I will do a guide on one of the 3 remaining paths. Leave a comment below if you want to see a guide for a specific build path, and let me know if you have any other tips and tricks for the Stonesplit Might path. That would be it for this video, and if you found this information helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.